getting onto artificial turf. For some of the newer commissioners, this was a discussion that we had to a great extent a couple years ago. We had workshops with both our planning board, we had workshops with the city commission, and we even had workshops with the city's sustainability committee. So we've asked, the commissioners asked to get an update, so I've asked Ray, who sat through a lot of those discussions along with myself and my staff, as well as Penny Redford and her staff, to just provide a quick update as to where we are now and what we've been doing with regard to artificial turf. So, right.
Good morning. Ray Caranci, landscape planner and planning. Artificial turf update. The changes to the code were part of the second round of the landscape code amendments to address specific areas of the code. This was in early in 2018 that the second round of changes were proposed. Workshops were held on June 28th and July 19th of 2017 with landscape architects and other interested parties for the landscape code changes. Draft language was recorded at that time from those recommendations. Sustainability Advisory Committee met on both occasions to discuss and hear from interested parties and residents regarding artificial turf. Recommendations were issued by the committee, and it was quite an interesting discussion between both sides of pro and against artificial turf. Code revision case 1711 went to the planning board as a workshop item in October of 2017 and as a recommendation item on November 21st of 17. The board recommended approval 7-0 with some changes. And this was bundled with many of the other changes to the landscape code at that point. Ordinance 4756-17 went to the City Commission for first reading in January of 2018. There was discussion and changes were requested for second reading, especially with the artificial turf code. Second reading was on April 11th, and it was approved 5-0 by the Commission at that time with some changes. So here is the current code as it stands, which defines the areas where artificial turf can be used. And they are the construction of non-city-owned athletic fields and playgrounds associated with a non-city-owned community center, park, school, or university, as part of the construction of any non-residential development, on rooftop terraces, on residential lots in the rear setback and side setback, or in multifamily residential developments as part of a recreation or amenity area. And in all of these cases, any non-city-owned athletic fields, the first part there requires approval by the City Commission. So it is a Class A special use, so it has to come to the Commission for approval. In all areas of installation, artificial turf shall be treated as impervious surface area. Quantity is limited then on a project by the amount of impervious area that is allowed. There's limitations on that. With the exception of those circumstances in which artificial turf is installed in a Class A, artificial turf shall not be a part of any landscape buffers required by this article and visible from a road or street. And it cannot be installed within permanent drainage features such as ponds or swales. Then there's a list of minimum material standards that have to be checked and have to be met with each application. I won't go through all those unless you've got some questions. And then installation, maintenance, repair. These are standards saying that it has to be maintained, it has to be kept in good condition, and going forward throughout that. And it also is required to have a permit to install artificial turf. So that's how it stands now. Are there any specific questions?
Any questions? I don't know who brought this up, but any questions, concerns? Madam President.
Thank you, Mayor. I had some questions regarding residents who had come to commission meetings recently about this. And so I don't know, is artificial turf significantly less expensive than sod? Is it,
I think it's more expensive.
more
And the big
expensive,
debate we
yeah.
had probably 2.5 years ago was particularly with regard to residential districts. And the bulk, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ray, but the bulk of the discussion was, do we allow it in the front setback? And at the time, the commission said we will allow it on the side and rear, but we did not want to allow it in the front setback, the first typically 25 feet of the front setback. We have had, I think, 3 people that have installed artificial turf without a permit. They simply did it on their own. They were cited. So we tried to make it very clear that it has to be in the side and rear only.
And I know in the past, some have suggested their kids had allergies to grass or something and use that as a reason why they wanted to have artificial turf.
well, I appreciate the education and the background on this is very helpful.
Okay, anything else on this? All right, thank you very much. Good presentation.
you.
Thank you.